Next sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 4 is number 61, fitting deeds. So, to start with his legitimate wealth, he makes himself happy and pleased, keeping himself properly happy. He makes his mother and father happy, he makes his children, partners, bondservants, workers and staff happy. He makes his friends and colleagues happy. This is the first expenditure in an appropriate sphere on a deserved and fitting cause. Yeah, so I always found this kind of interesting, this little suttas. You may have seen this before, but they always start off with using your wealth for yourself. You make yourself happy and pleased. Yeah, you look after yourself. You are worthy of spending money on. Isn't that nice? Yeah, you are worthy of looking after yourself. And this is kind of very typical of the Dhamma, that we look after ourselves. We don't just look after other people. And this is very kind of Buddhist way of thinking about the world. And of course the reason is because we are closest to ourselves. We are the ones who can really enjoy our own care. Yeah, so we look after ourselves. And so this is number one, look after yourself. And you will notice also what is interesting here is that you don't just look after yourself with your wealth, but with your legitimate wealth. That is an important difference, because what that means is that if you want to give a gift to somebody, including to yourself, if that gift comes from your legitimate means, that you have earned them through hard work and these kind of things, then it is a much more powerful gift, because it's as if you are giving something that really belongs to you. If you have not got it if it's ill-gotten gains, as they say, and you have received it by, some dodgy manner, it doesn't really feel like you're giving away what is yours. It is ill-gotten gain. It's not really legitimate. So legitimate wealth, is what is really powerful. And so you keep yourself happy. The next you keep happy is your mother and father, is the next. And then if you have anything left over after your mother and father, then maybe you look after your wife, No, or your husband, or whatever it is, might be. That's kind of what it says here, mother and father first, then children. So children too, they come after your mother and father. Partners, bondservants, these are servants, workers and staff. Then, after that, comes your friends and colleagues. You look after your friends and colleagues. And this is the first expenditure in an appropriate sphere, that on a deserved and fitting cause. Kind of makes sense? Use your legitimate wealth in this way. Okay, so what is the second expenditure, I wonder? Is it here? Yes? Second one. Furthermore, with his legitimate wealth, he defends himself against threats from such things as fire, flood, rulers, bandits, and unloved heirs. He keeps himself safe. This is his second expenditure in an appropriate sphere on a deserved and fitting cause. So you make yourself safe, you have a lock on your door. You don't allow the burglars to just walk into your house, This is what it's basically saying. And so you ensure the safety of the things that you have, So this is kind of a legitimate thing. It's kind of interesting. The Buddha doesn't say we should be stupid. We should be wise about how we look after our things. I like the one about unloved heirs. Sometimes your heirs are not, you have a bad relationship with them. Your children are really gone off the rails. And I don't know what they're doing. And so you have to defend your wealth against your children rather than kind of, passing it on sometimes. You can see how the Dhamma is very balanced. It depends on the circumstances. What is the right way of doing things? Rulers and bandits go together. It's interesting. Sometimes the rulers can be a bit like bandits. They kind of take things that is not really theirs. They will taken, and so they kind of goes together. So this is interesting. So you can defend yourself against all these things. Next one, the third expenditure. with his legitimate wealth, he makes 5 kinds of offerings to relatives, to guests, to ancestors, to kings, and to deities. This is interesting, yeah? Offering to your relatives. So in other words, it's not just to the people who are closest to you, but to your larger family as well. We saw this, the verse talks about looking after your relatives. That was part of this verse, generosity and looking after your relatives. So here it is, the relatives. Guests, atita. Especially in the ancient world, it was much more common to have guests just come to your house, random guests. You meet someone on the street and say, "Oh, please come in for dinner." Some random person on the street, and you would have guests come in. And that's kind of nice, In the ancient world, people would wander around much more, and they would rely. There weren't any hotels around in those days, and so you would rely on people putting you up in in strange places. So you look after your guests, you look after your ancestors, not just your deceased parents, but your ancestors. So when you do an act of generosity, you share the merit, and if your parents can't receive it, your ancestors can. There's always going to be someone there among your ancestors who has passed away who can receive the merit. There's always some dead ancestor who can receive the merit you're making. Why? Because you have been going through so many lives. Because you've been going so many lives, you have so many ancestors. You can't even count how many ancestors you have. So of course there's going to be someone reborn in the Preta Loka or the Peta Loka, and they will be able to receive the generosity that you are doing, the kindness you're doing. You make an offering to kings. You want to be on the good foot with the king. Okay, king, please look after me. Here is a little offering to you. So you look after the kings. These days, that's probably not possible. I don't know if you can go to the king of Malaysia and say, here, sir, here is an offering. It's probably difficult. The kings are too far removed. But in those days, the king were small-time kings. They were kings of small kingdoms. There was only a few. They only had a few, a small kind of people under them. And so that's why you could give to the kings. And the deities, maybe that's the only one I'm a bit unsure about, because I'm not sure how you give to the deities, but anyway, it is there. And I'm not sure if that is more of a Brahmanical tradition than a Buddhist tradition, and I wonder whether it comes from the Brahmanical tradition. But the 4 other ones make really good sense. So they're kind of nice. They're things you can think about, especially the giving to the ancestors and relatives are still very applicable. The 4th one. Furthermore, with his legitimate wealth, he establishes an uplifting religious donation for ascetics and Brahmins. Those who refrain from intoxication and negligence are settled in patience and gentleness, and who tame, calm, and extinguish themselves. That's conducive to heaven, ripens in happiness, and leads to heaven. This is the 4th expenditure in an appropriate sphere on a deserved and fitting cause. So this is the one where part of the generosity is also to ascetics and Brahmins. And ascetics and Brahmins are defined in a very kind of limited way here. Those who are not negligent, who refrain from intoxication, who are settled in patience and gentleness, and who tame and extinguish themselves. So here we're talking about people who give up desires and gives up ill will, and they extinguish themselves, extinguish the fire of greed, hate, and delusion, as you find in the Aditta Sutta. So ideally this obviously means the arahants, and if it doesn't mean arahants, it means the other areas, and if it doesn't mean that, it means those who have deep meditation. So this is kind of where you have you establish a religious donation. And if you give to such people, then that is the kind of generosity that is conducive to really good results. It is conducive to heaven. So if you want to be reborn in heaven, that's a good thing to do. If you don't want to be reborn in heaven, don't give this kind of generosity. But also it ripens in happiness, so it means here that kind of happiness is a sort of happiness that we are seeking to support the meditation practice, right? And so for that reason it's also very, very useful. And of course, this fits with the idea that we find in the suttas, that if you give to someone who is enlightened, on the path of enlightenment, it is an especially powerful kind of merit. And that's why it leads to very good results. And that's what this is about. It's about those people who have gone a long way on the path, and therefore the results of that generosity is going to be especially powerful. So these are the 4 kinds of gifts. You will notice that the Buddha does not say that you should only give to the arahants. You have all of these other ones you should also give to. All of these things are the appropriate sphere. Guarding your wealth to your family and your workers, to the guests and all of these kind of things. And then only after having kind of done all of those, done the basic things, then you also set aside a certain little bit for the ascetics and Brahmins. So it's not about giving always to where it is the most merit. Okay. Inclusion. So now we are broadening out a little bit. So now we have looked at the main ideas of generosity. There's much more we could say about generosity, because generosity is, again, there are lots of suttas about this. But let's move on a little bit, because there are just too many suttas. We can't do every one every time. Some of them I've done here before. So inclusion. Mendicants, there are these 4 ways of being inclusive. Saṅgaha is the Pali word. Bringing people together is literally what it means. Gaha is to take together. What are the 4? Giving, kind words or endearing words, service, and equality. So this is how the translation of what you have may be a bit different from what I have, because I made changes just to be naughty. So I make changes. So don't trust me too much, because changes are being made. So these are the 4 things that draw people together and draw people around you. Sometimes this is said to be the 4 qualities that make you and give you an entourage. So you have in the suttas you have a couple of people, Hattaka of Alavi and I think Chitta, one of the Chittas, they had this big entourage. When they come to visit the Buddha, there would be 500 people coming with them. And the Buddha would ask them, how come you have such a large entourage? What are all these people doing with you? And they would say, because I practice these 4 ways of being inclusive, and then people just come. So if you want to be very popular, this is what you should do. If you don't want to be too popular, you should not do these things. You should do these things, right? These are good things to do regardless. And then if you become popular, when you find a way of dealing with that, that's okay. Because you can imagine it gets a bit tiresome if you have 500 people coming with you everywhere. After a while, you get a bit fed up with that. But you tend to make you popular. People will like you if you live in this particular way. So giving, if you give at the right time, then people, generally speaking, they will have a high opinion of you, because it's someone who gives you a gift, especially just out of the blue, and here is something nice for you, and you feel, wow, that's very kind. You feel very good about that. Kindly words, peya vacha. Piya means dear. We have Dhammapiya here. So peya vacha is the beautiful words, that are endearing, that go to the heart. And you know how it can be very endearing to be with people who speak in a nice way. And so you feel really good around that. You are drawn to that sort of people. Service. You provide service for people. You help them out when they need. You give them a hand. You support them in various ways. Allow me to help you. Please. And so you help them. And again, this is very nice when people kind of see what is required and they just help out in this way. And the last one is the idea of equality. Samanata. And this is the idea that you treat people roughly the same. You don't have kind of favorites or some people who are more important because they might be useful for you, or they might be wealthy, or they might be whatever. You don't really treat people like that. Everyone has equal worth in your mind, and everyone deserves equal time and equal consideration. This is the idea of equality. So if you do these 4 things, then generally speaking, you will be looked upon favorably, and you may end up having an entourage. And so we will see next time you come to the BGF, instead of having, I don't know, what is it, 50, 60 people or whatever, it will be 500 people coming here. So only one of you will come, but that one person brings 500 others. So I don't know. So beautiful ideas, and sometimes the Dhamma is presented in different ways. The purpose of these four things is not so that you can have a large entourage. That is kind of just a side effect of these things. The purpose is to live in a way whereby you are a benefit to the world, benefit to others. It opens up new avenues, it opens up new ways of thinking. When you are popular with others, it is an opportunity to teach other people Dhamma, right? This is kind of one of the reasons why you do these things. I remember some years ago, Ajahn Brahm, he was invited to Sri Lanka. And when he was invited to Sri Lanka, he was invited to one of the #1 meditation monasteries in Sri Lanka called Na Uyena Monastery. And if you go there, you find people from around the world, they go there. People from Malaysia go there. All kinds of places, they go to this monastery because it is a famous meditation monastery. And so Ajahn Brahm was invited to go there and give a talk. Because Ajahn Brahm is very famous, in part because he basically practices these four qualities. And so he went there, but instead of taking that opportunity to kind of endearing himself and saying what they wanted to hear, he was asked a question while he was there. Is the Abhidhamma the word of the Buddha? Was the question he was asked. And he said, no, it is not the word of the Buddha. And having said that, he was never invited again. Because it is considered controversial in certain places, and especially in those branches of Buddhism where the Abhidhamma is considered like the kind of preeminent word of the Buddha. Then if you say it's not the word of the Buddha, it becomes too controversial, they can't deal with it, and so they never invite you back. But that is the right way of using that fame. You use the fame to do good in the world, not to attach to the fame so that you try to please people, so that you can kind of keep that fame for the future. Using fame or using your being well known in the right way means you use it to teach Dhamma in a positive way. So it is great to have people who come, who are attracted in this way, because it allows you opportunities to teach something that otherwise would not be possible. So, inclusion. Okay. What comes next? I don't know what comes next. The great chapter. Okay. So this is from the Vinaya Pitaka. So you won't see much from the Vinaya Pitaka, but this is one of the things you will see from the Vinaya Pitaka. So this is my translation, and so that's not why I included it because it fits well with what we are looking at here. So this is from KD1. KD1 means Khandaka 1, the first chapter of the Khandakas. These is the rules of the monastics outside of the Patimokkha rules. So, what we have here, this is soon after the Buddha's awakening. He has already taught the five monks who looked after him, and they have all become arahants already. And then the Buddha travels on, and he meets someone else called Yasa. And Yasa is one of these people who becomes one of the Buddha's early disciples. And during this meeting, the Buddha gives what he calls a progressive talk to Yasa. And during this progressive talk, Yasa becomes a stream enterer. And this is the nature of this progressive talk. It's a very common thing in the suttas, the idea of the progressive talk. It is found countless times. Not so commonly in the suttas, but in the Vinaya it is found very often. And this is how it goes. The Buddha then gave Yasa a progressive talk on generosity, morality, and heaven, on the downside degradation and defilement of worldly pleasures. And he revealed the benefit of renunciation. When the Buddha knew that Yasa's mind was ready, supple, without hindrances, joyful and confident, he revealed the teaching unique to the Buddhas. Suffering, its origin, its end, and the path. Just as a clean and stainless cloth absorbs dye properly, so too, while he was sitting right there, Yasa experienced a stainless vision of the truth. Anything that has a beginning has an end. What do you reckon about that translation? Is it good or good? Thank you. That's very kind of you to say that. I appreciate that. I'm being naughty, so I apologize. So anyway, so that is the reason I included this is because it shows you in one place the significance of generosity on the Buddhist path. Yeah, the progressive talk begins with generosity, and then it goes stage by stage all the way to becoming a stream enterer. Yeah, so all the various aspects of the path are there, but generosity is the foundation. That's kind of interesting. It shows you the importance of this. It shows you how foundational it is. It shows you the power to lead you on. Yeah, the fact that it comes first is before morality means that it is more basic than morality in many ways. Yeah, so it shows you how it fits into the overall idea of the Buddhist path and how we should not neglect it. Yeah, sometimes people think, yeah, as long as I'm moral, I'm fine. But no, we should also build on these things that can often give rise to a lot of joy in the practice. So you are generous. Once you're generous, then you are moral. Then the Buddha talks about heaven. That's also interesting, isn't it? Because we always say, oh, you shouldn't be reborn in heaven, be reborn as a human being is much better. But here the Buddha is talking about heaven. He's obviously saying that from living well, you get reborn in heaven. That's what he's saying. Otherwise it wouldn't be there. So he's promoting the idea, really, of rebirth in heaven as a positive thing, not as something dangerous. And so I would argue from this that actually the Buddha, there's no problem there being reborn in heaven from a Buddha's point of view. So generosity, morality, and then heaven, because heaven is a consequence of being generous and moral. Then, having said that, once he has promoted heaven, in the very next phrase, he sort of downgrades heaven. The downside, degradation and defilement of worldly pleasures. Worldly pleasures are the karma. Yeah, the karmas are kind of the sensual pleasures of the world. So first of all, heaven obviously is a very high degree of sensual pleasures. The next thing it says, be careful with those sensual pleasures. Yeah, so it's kind of fascinating. You can see how it's stage by stage. First of all, you enjoy the sensual pleasures to a high and refined level in the heaven. Once you have done that, then you abandon them. Yeah, so you have to do these things in the right kind of sequence. So you have to see the downside of the worldly pleasures, how they are impermanent, how they are unreliable, how they never live up to what they say, how they're always about the future, never really in the present, all of these kind of things. The degradation, the okada of these things, they make your mind low. A high and lofty mind is a mind that emerges out of the sensual world and into the world of meditation and samadhi. Whereas the essential pleasures keeps the mind down. It doesn't allow it to drift up and become powerful and bright and beautiful and kind of have this hot air balloon which kind of rises up and gives you the bird's eye view of existence. All of that is blocked out because of sensual pleasures. It keeps you down. It degrades the mind. It defiles the mind. Yeah, the mind gets tainted by this, constrained by this, held back by these worldly pleasures. It doesn't allow the mind the freedom of being free of defilements. So there are a problem with these defilements. There is a problem with worldly pleasures. So first of all, he talks about the benefit of morality, which is a heavenly realm. Then he talks about the danger. Everything has a benefit and a danger. Once he has talked about the danger, then he reveals the benefit of renunciation. Yeah, renunciation here means giving up those worldly pleasures so you can achieve a higher pleasure. Renunciation is always a positive thing in the Buddhism, in the Dhamma. It is achieving something higher, more pleasurable, more happy. Very often people say, oh, look at this sequence, it shows you can become a stream enterer without samadhi. No, it doesn't show that at all, because the benefit of renunciation, that is the samadhi. It is right there. When you give up sensuality, deep meditation, samadhi is a consequence. So this sequence does not show that you just give a progressive talk. You have to assume here that all of these qualities are also practiced. That's why this works. Yeah. So you renounce, you achieve samadhi. Then when the mind is ready, and this could have taken a long time, it could have taken weeks maybe. Yeah, the progressive talk doesn't mean it's all given in one go. It can be given over time. Then, because of that samadhi, the mind is pure, free of hindrances, joyful, elated, confident. It is supple. In other words, you can use your mind easily. It is workable. It is very soft and gentle, has all of these beautiful qualities. When the mind has reached those qualities, only then is it ready to have the deep insights. This is one of the reasons why samadhi, the jhanas, all of these things are so important on the path. So then you reveal the Four Noble Truths. Suffering, its origin, its end, and the path. And that is when your mind absorbs the die. Beautifully. Your mind absorbs the die because you are ready here. So absorbing the die means that it takes those qualities and it understands them. Your mind gets changed by the insight into the Four Noble Truths, and it is no longer the same afterwards. You become psychologically changed as a person because of that insight. You absorb it because you have the ability, the stains are taken away, and for that reason you are able to see clearly what is going on. So yasa experience, the stainless vision of the truth. This is Dhamma here. Anything that has a beginning has an end. And of course what that means is that because everything has a beginning, everything has an end. Everything arises and everything passes away. And so this is an insight into impermanence that you have right there. You understand the impermanence of everything in the world. And because you understand the impermanence of everything in the world, anything has a beginning, yang kinshi samudayang dhammang sabbang tang nirodha dhammang ti, is the Pali here. Anything that has a beginning has an end. Everything in the world arises and passes away. Everything is impermanent. Everything is unreliable. Everything is uncertain. Nothing can be held on to. Attachments are in the end impossible because nothing will allow you to be attached. It will be taken away from you. And because of that, it is all dukkha. It is impermanent and so is dukkha. And because it is not under your control, because it's not always there, because nothing is an inherent characteristic in your life, it is all non-self. You can't control it. It is not yours. It is not an aspect of some sort of self, some inherent trait that you have. And then after that, it has this beautiful little extra passage that I have taken out. Maybe I shouldn't have taken it out, but then after this, Yasa says to the Buddha, he wants to become a disciple of the Buddha. And he says, the standard phrase, just as something that was upside down gets turned upright, it turns on the light in the dark, so one with eyesight can see forms. And these beautiful little similes, that kind of, he says, wow, I've finally seen reality. He's kind of really excited. Please take me as a disciple who has gone forth, or who not has gone forth, who become a disciple until the end of life. In those days, they were always very serious. Everything was until the end of life. That was kind of how they did things. Okay, let's take another break and do some more Q&A afterwards. Any comments or questions from anyone?
Good afternoon, Ajahn. I have questions on the sutta on fitting deeds. I think when the part of the text that is not shown in the extract, right? when I first read this sutta, I had my head scratching, right? Because at the end of the sutta, right, it's listed there 4 categories of using the wealth, and then at the end of the sutta, then you have this: whatever wealth is spent on something other than these 4 fitting deeds is said to be not expenditure in an appropriate sphere on a deserved and fitting cause. So is the Buddha saying that if you spend on other categories of purpose, then you are wasting your wealth?
Sounds like it.
Which is kind of weird when you look at it this way, because there are so many categories that, of useful purposes that you can use, but then right there you see the statement that refuting that these kind of purposes.
Yeah, what do you think of, like investment or something? Is that what you're thinking of, or are you?
Not just that. Let's say, for example, you are helping the orphanage, or you are doing charity for, let's say, animal shelter. Those does not fall under these categories, I think. And then because of that statement, is kind of how to say, putting down those kind of things. Yeah.
I mean, it's also about that kind of society. You know, I mean, these things were given in a certain context, and in that society, maybe these were the 4 kind of main areas. You know, in the present age, then, as you say, given to an orphanage, maybe somewhere far away. That was not something you could do at the time of the Buddha. It was just not, you know, it wasn't really feasible, but that can be done today. So maybe this should be seen in that context. That's one thing. Another thing that is not really mentioned here, which I think is also important, is kind of putting money back into your business again. It's not really mentioned here. But obviously that's also important, right? You have to kind of expand your business or reinvest or whatever it is. So some of the expenditure will be back into your business. That will also be important. So yeah, it has to. I think it has to be read in a certain context. Here, using excess wealth that is beyond your business, given the Indian context at the time, or something like that. The other thing is that something like that ending passage that you're talking about now could theory maybe have been added later on. It may not be part of the original sutta, that the Buddha gives the 4 ways, and then someone who is a little bit too keen. Is that the verse at the end?
Yeah. Not verse. Sorry, it's a prose. Is it
prose? Part of the okay, it's part of the same thing then. Okay, but very often, you know, the suttas are sometimes expanded. One of the ways of expanding them is by adding verse at the end. That's kind of one of the ways that do that. The verse kind of summarizes the prose. And that can happen in different ways, and you will see that distinction sometimes when you compare the suttas from one tradition to another one. Have you compared it to the tradition is that a Chinese version of the sutta? Or
I think there's no parallel in Agama, but I could be wrong. Let me put.
Yeah.
I have not. There's a Agama. I have not checked it.
Okay, so maybe check. Maybe you can get more clarity when you check the parallel version and see if there is something similar. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is why it is. You have a good point, and I think this is one of the reasons why we have to be a little bit careful when we read the suttas and not take it as the absolute truth, and to understand that there is some historical development, there is context, there's all of these kind of things. So it's good that you read them with that sort of critical eye. So so thank you for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Another thing about this sutta is that I mean, one of the statements that you use your legitimate wealth and then give it to the king. So is that an endorsement for lobbying? So nowadays you don't have king, but then you have government, right? Then I give you a bit of money, I scratch your back, then you scratch my back.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of slightly bribery. I guess all of these things come in to various degrees, right? It may be that you just give an honest gift to the king, and if he wants to kind of scratch your back, then he does that. But it may not be done with that intention. It may just be maybe you appreciate the king. Maybe the king does look after the country, so you give a bit in tax or whatever it might be. I don't know. it's hard. It's all contextual, and it's very hard to know exactly what the context is. But yeah, it could be read as an endorsement of bribery. So yeah. All right.
About this giving in Buddha Vachana, it said that the highest giving is to get rid of your stinginess.
Mhm.
That's the highest giving.
To get rid of your stinginess.
Yes. And not expecting anything in return.
Okay, where do you know which sutta that is?
Buddha Vachana?
Which one? Many Buddha Vachana.
I don't know.
Not sure. Okay.
But
Yeah.
I listened to Ajahn Kukrit,
Mm-hmm.
the Thai,
Yeah.
that he teach Buddha Vachana
Yeah.
only.
Yeah.
Only Buddha Vachana. And I hear him all the time
Yeah.
that the highest giving is to get rid of your stinginess.
Yeah.
That's the highest giving.
Yeah. I mean, there are obviously different ways of looking at it, and I can't remember that specific sutta, but there probably is a sutta like that, quite likely. And so there are just different angles from which you can consider the idea of highest giving. So yes, to get rid of stinginess, but if you give to make an adornment for your mind, that is also already, there is no stinginess there. Yeah, that's already kind of gone at that particular point. So it's a similar kind of, I think it's a similar kind of expression of the Dhamma in those particular cases. So that is giving already without stinginess. So yeah. Anyway, okay, good. Yeah, thank you.